There is something sacred about innocence, not the kind born out of ignorance, but the kind that chooses goodness in a world that often rewards cruelty. The quiet soul who offers trust even when others offer suspicion. The heart that believes, forgives, gives, over and over again, until it's left with nothing but the bruises of its own compassion. Have you ever wondered why such hearts often end up wounded the most? The world tends to mistake gentleness for weakness. They see someone kind and they assume that person is naive. They see patience and believe it's passivity. And so the innocent become easy targets for those who carry darkness in their intent. Those who measure strength not by virtue, but by the ability to manipulate, to dominate, and to hurt without guilt. But there is something those who hurt the innocent always forget. God sees it all. He sees the moment someone trusted and that trust was shattered. He sees when pure intentions are mocked and misused. He hears the cries of those who suffer quietly behind the mask of strength. Every tear wiped away before anyone noticed. Every moment of confusion wondering why me. Every internal war fought in silence while the world saw only a smile. The truth is, God keeps record not as a bookkeeper tallying revenge, but as a loving father who cannot bear to see his children mistreated. Those who have hurt the innocent have mistaken silence for approval. They thought their lies could shield them. They believed their cruelty would never be answered. But heaven keeps better records than earth, and what was done in secret will not remain hidden forever. Innocence is not blindness. It's strength wrapped in humility, and to hurt such strength is not just cruelty, it is rebellion against the very image of God. Because when you harm the innocent, you offend the one who made them. When you take advantage of their trust, you insult the one who taught them to love. And when you mock their purity, you provoke the one who is holy. There's a divine law woven into the fabric of this world. Those who harm others for their own gain will not go unpunished. Not because we demand justice, but because justice is the language of heaven. And even if it takes time, even if it seems the wicked prosper, there comes a day when their actions catch up to them. There comes a night when their sleep turns restless, when peace escapes them and regret becomes their companion. That day will come, not by our hands, but by His. So, to the one who has been hurt, this is not the end of your story. What they tried to break, God is about to rebuild, stronger. What they used against you will be used to elevate you, and the pain they cause will become the testimony that silences every lie. Because God sees, and what God sees, He redeems. God doesn't just watch. He stores every tear as evidence of injustice. There is a silence in suffering that only God can hear. While others turn away, too busy or too blind to see the wounds of the gentle, God leans in closer. He sees not only the act, but the intent behind it. And He doesn't simply observe like a passive witness. He records, not with ink on paper, but with the compassion of a father who is furious at injustice and tender toward pain. Each tear that falls in secret is a line in heaven's record. Each moment of confusion, each whisper of "why would they do this to me?" becomes a prayer etched into eternity. The world often forgets the weight of what it means to harm the innocent. They imagine their words vanish into thin air, their betrayals disappear with time. But heaven forgets nothing. While the victim lies awake at night, replaying every moment, the abuser moves on, laughing, dismissing, pretending. And yet, God is not deceived. His justice is not swayed by manipulation or social power. He does not look at popularity, position, or excuses. He looks at the heart. And He listens to the cries that never made it into words. Those who are wounded for no reason, those who are only guilty of loving too deeply or trusting too easily. These are the ones closest to the heart of God. For what does Scripture say? He is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. This nearness is not symbolic, it is real. God becomes the only one who sits in the empty room with the one who was abandoned. The only one who understands when everyone else says, just move on. But God doesn't just understand, He prepares, because those tears are not wasted. They are not forgotten in the noise of life. They become the very evidence God uses to justify divine action. Like a judge gathering witness testimony, God collects the pain, the betrayal, the silence, and the scars. And He does so not with cold legalism, but with the fierce love of a father who watched his child be mocked, dismissed, rejected, or used by someone who never valued their worth. We often cry, God, where were you? But the truth is, He was right there weeping with us. He was the hand that steadied us when no one else reached out. He was the whisper of strength when we felt like collapsing. And while we thought no one noticed our endurance, heaven applauded. While we thought our suffering was unseen, heaven stored every detail like precious gold. Because to God, your innocence was not weakness, it was beauty. And beauty, when scarred by cruelty, calls for justice that only God can fulfill. Those who harm the pure never go unseen by heaven's eyes. It is easy for the wicked to believe they are safe. They cloak their actions in shadows, hiding behind charm, lies, and silence. They move through life with confidence, even arrogance, thinking their mistreatment of others, especially the innocent, will vanish in the fog of time. But what they forget is this: heaven has no blind spots. The eyes of God miss nothing. To hurt someone who has done you no harm is to stand in defiance of divine law. It is to spit in the face of love itself. And yet, how many do this daily without hesitation? They see kindness as an opportunity to control. They see forgiveness as a weakness to exploit. And they assume, because there is no immediate thunder from heaven, that they are safe. But the absence of punishment is not proof of innocence. It is the calm before a storm designed with perfect precision. Heaven's judgment doesn't operate on our timetable. It does not rush, but it does not forget. There is no injustice too small for God to notice. There is no betrayal too quiet for Him to hear. Every whisper, every sarcastic laugh, every dismissive gesture aimed at someone who only wanted to love is seen, and not just seen, but measured. For God is not merely aware, He is accounting, and the moment will come when the debt is due. You may have asked yourself, how could they do that to someone like me? The answer is not found in your flaws, but in their blindness. They could not see the treasure standing in front of them because their hearts were already corroded with pride, selfishness, or fear. They mistook innocence for ignorance, patience for passivity, and love for neediness. But it is not your identity that is in question, it is theirs. When someone wounds a pure soul, they declare something about themselves far louder than anything they said about you. They show they have no reverence for goodness, no understanding of sacredness, and God does not ignore such a declaration. His justice is not always immediate, but it is always inevitable. Sometimes it comes in the form of isolation, where those who inflicted pain suddenly find themselves surrounded by people who treat them exactly the way they treated others. Sometimes it comes in the form of internal chaos, where their peace disappears and their nights become haunted by the very hurt they caused. But however it comes, it always does, for heaven is watching. And when the innocent are harmed, the cry goes out before the throne of God, not just for comfort, but for divine response. Innocence is a reflection of God, and harming it is a direct offense against him. There is a sacredness to innocence that the world does not fully comprehend. Innocence is not mere naivety. It is a conscious choice to walk in purity while surrounded by corruption. It is the courage to remain soft in a world that praises hardness. Innocence is the language of the divine spoken through human hearts. And when someone chooses to harm that innocence, they do not just commit an offense against a person, they trespass against the image of God. To violate innocence is to reject something God treasures deeply. It is to strike at what reflects his own nature: mercy, humility, gentleness, and truth. The innocent do not pretend to be strong, and perhaps that is their greatest strength. Their openness invites both connection and risk. They allow others in, trusting not because they are blind, but because they believe in the power of goodness. So when they are met with betrayal instead of kindness, mockery instead of respect, exploitation instead of love, the sin is not just personal, it becomes spiritual treason. God is not indifferent when someone chooses to harm what he made in his likeness. When a pure heart is broken for daring to believe the best in someone, God does not stay silent. His holiness cannot tolerate injustice toward what he has made to carry light. We must remember, every act of cruelty against the innocent is also an act of rebellion against the Creator who shaped them with care. Those who use others, who deceive the kind-hearted, who manipulate the gentle, may think they are winning something, but in truth they are incurring a spiritual debt they cannot pay. It is a dangerous thing to mock what God deems holy, and innocence is holy. It's not weakness, it's power restrained. It's not ignorance, it's wisdom wrapped in love. And that is why God watches so closely over the innocent. Because when they are hurt, it is his own heart that is wounded. When they are betrayed, he rises to act on their behalf. Not always with immediate punishment, but always with perfect justice, because the one who touches his reflection with unclean hands will not go untouched forever. The world may look away, but God draws closer. Those who thought they were free to harm the innocent will one day face the eyes of the one who sees every motive, every hidden word, every subtle cruelty. And when that day comes, their actions will be weighed not against social standards, but against eternal truth. And no lie can stand before that fire. Because to hurt the innocent is not just wrong, it is war against heaven itself. Your quiet suffering is preparing a loud restoration. When you suffer in silence, it feels as though the pain is lost in the void, that your tears fall unnoticed, your heartbreak unheard. You sit in the quiet, bearing wounds you didn't ask for, wondering if healing will ever come. But what you cannot see is what God is building in the silence. Your suffering is not wasted. It is preparing a restoration so powerful it will echo louder than your pain ever did. God is not only a comforter, he is a restorer, and restoration is never quiet. It is not a whisper, it is a divine announcement that what was once broken is being rebuilt by hands greater than human understanding. The pain you endured quietly is being turned into a platform that will declare God's justice, mercy, and faithfulness. The humiliation, the abandonment, the betrayal, they are all ingredients in the miracle he is preparing for you. Suffering often feels like isolation, but in the spiritual realm, it's the space where divine transformation begins. Like a seed buried in the ground, it feels dark and lonely, but beneath the surface, a miracle is unfolding. The roots of resilience begin to grow. The soil of sorrow begins to nourish the fruit of strength. And when the time comes, the very ones who saw you suffer will be the witnesses of your rise. Those who watched you cry without offering comfort will be surprised by the joy they can no longer understand. Those who whispered about your weakness will hear the thunder of your restoration. For the tables always turn, not by your doing, but by God's timing. He lifts up the lowly, he binds up the broken-hearted, and he makes sure that the ending is never like the beginning. There's something poetic in the way God rewrites stories. He doesn't erase the pain, but he makes it serve you. He takes the tears and turns them into testimony. He takes the silence and turns it into strength. And when the time is right, he brings you out of hiding, not in bitterness, not in pride, but in glory. Not to prove others wrong, but to prove himself faithful. What you're walking through in silence now will one day be the very proof of God's presence in your life. Your suffering is not a detour, it is the preparation. And the restoration that is coming won't be quiet. It will be so radiant that even your enemies will be silenced. Not by your revenge, but by your peace, your strength, and your undeniable rise. Because when God restores, he doesn't just give back what you lost. He gives back more than you imagine. Their cruelty will become the weight they cannot bear in silence forever. There is a peculiar silence that follows cruelty. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of guilt. It does not come immediately. At first, the one who caused harm walks freely, even proudly. They convince themselves they've done nothing wrong, or worse, they justify their actions as necessary, deserved, or even clever. They suppress the still, small voice of conscience with noise, distraction, and denial, but God does not allow such deceit to last forever. Eventually, what was done to the innocent begins to echo in the corridors of their memory. The laughter they once used to mock begins to haunt. The moments they dismissed as nothing start to appear in vivid detail, and no matter how far they run, their actions become a shadow that follows them into every quiet moment, because what was done in the dark is never truly buried. It becomes a burden that God does not allow them to forget. You see, cruelty against the innocent is not a light thing. It is a spiritual weight. And though a person may smile on the outside, the soul cannot escape what it knows deep down to be wrong. At first, the pain they caused seems to belong only to the victim. But in time, that pain finds its way back to the one who inflicted it. Not in the form of revenge, but as a relentless heaviness that no distraction can lift. Because when you hurt someone who only offered love, you invite a kind of sorrow that your soul cannot outrun. This weight is not placed by the world, it is placed by God, not out of cruelty, but out of divine order. For there is no peace for the wicked, not because we demand it, but because God's justice cannot be mocked. The longer they delay repentance, the heavier the burden becomes. And while the innocent may move forward, healing in quiet dignity, the guilty often begin to sink under the weight of what they thought would never return to them. God does not always act with thunderbolts. Sometimes his judgment arrives in the form of internal unrest, a mind that cannot quiet, a heart that cannot rest. The one who once laughed without conscience starts to dread silence. The one who once walked tall begins to look over their shoulder, because guilt, when planted by God, grows roots deep in the soul. It changes the atmosphere of a person's life. Their relationships falter, their peace unravels, and no matter how much they pretend, they know something isn't right. The cruelty they chose will not vanish. It becomes their shadow. And when God allows that shadow to grow, it turns into a storm within, a storm that cannot be silenced by excuses or self-praise. A storm that reminds them of what they did, not to shame them eternally, but to awaken them. Because in God's justice, there is always an invitation to recognize the weight of one's own sin, but until that recognition comes, the burden remains. And every night they try to rest, they will feel what they made others feel. Not by coincidence, but by design. God delays justice, not because he forgets, but because he is perfectly precise. It is one of the hardest truths to accept, that God's justice does not move according to our clocks. We want instant answers, immediate consequences, swift reversals. We want to see the ones who hurt us brought low right away, if only to confirm that what we suffered was not in vain. But God, in his wisdom, often chooses delay, not out of neglect, but because he sees further than we do. Justice, when rushed, becomes shallow, but divine justice is never rushed. It is sculpted. Every event, every delay, every silence serves a greater purpose than we can see. And while it may feel like those who hurt us are winning, thriving, or escaping, the truth is they are only being positioned. God's justice is not a reaction, it is a revelation. And when he moves, he does so in a way that leaves no doubt about who he is. We must understand that God is not like man. He is not provoked by pride or anger. He doesn't respond to pain out of impulse. He responds with perfect knowledge. He sees the past and the future. He knows the hidden motivations behind actions. He understands the layers of each wound, and he considers every ripple caused by the cruelty of others. His justice accounts for what we cannot even name. So when he delays with intention. The pain is not being overlooked, it is being measured. The cries are not being ignored, they are being stored. And the day will come when the scales will tip, not because we forced it, but because justice that is divine cannot be silenced forever. Those who believe they've gotten away with harming the innocent live in illusion. Their victories are temporary, their smiles momentary, because when God acts, it is never partial. He doesn't just expose the wrong, he dismantles the illusion. He doesn't just reverse the pain, he restores what was stolen with greater beauty than before. But such restoration requires timing, and that is why he waits. It may seem cruel that he allows the wicked to prosper, but what if he is giving them time to repent? What if his delay is not an oversight but mercy? For even those who do wrong are given a window to make it right. Yet if they choose to ignore that window, to keep mocking, using, and harming, then when God finally acts, there will be no appeal, because the opportunity was there. The delay was the warning, and once that time passes, the judgment arrives, swift and unshakable. God's delay is not weakness, it is power under control. It is the patience of a judge who will not be swayed. It is the love of a father who prepares restoration that is deeper than revenge. Because he does not want to merely punish the wrongdoer, he wants to redeem the broken. And so he waits, not in forgetfulness but in precision. And when the moment arrives, everything falls into place. Because the hands that formed the universe are never late. Your restoration will be public, so that those who watched you fall will watch you rise. There is a kind of pain that is made worse by the presence of an audience. When you are wounded behind closed doors, it's one thing, but when others witness your fall, when they stand by and say nothing, when they join in the mockery, when they watch your tears with apathy, it leaves a scar that goes deeper. Not just the pain of what was done, but the pain of what was allowed. That silence from others, that shared look of amusement, that whispered gossip, that cold shoulder, it all adds another layer to the grief. And yet, there's a hidden promise in such moments, because the very ones who watched your fall will be the ones who witness your rise. Not because you will make a show of your strength, but because God will make a show of his faithfulness. Your restoration will not be private. It will be visible. It will be public. It will be undeniable. Because the same people who saw you broken need to see you healed, not for your pride, but for God's glory. He does this throughout history. He restores in full view. He blesses in the presence of enemies. He lifts the humble in front of the proud. Because there's a justice in visibility, those who dismissed you will be confronted with your strength. Those who mocked you will be silenced by your peace. Those who took your tears lightly will be astonished by your joy. This is not about revenge. It is about redemption, being made visible. You see, God doesn't just fix what's broken, He showcases it. He makes beauty rise from ashes, not in a corner, but on a stage. And that stage is not one you choose, it is one He builds, brick by brick, from the very ruins of what others destroyed. He allows your scars to become the story, your silence to become your strength, your suffering to become your platform. And He does it not just for your sake, but for the world that watched you suffer. When people see what God has done in you, they will have no explanation. They will say, "Weren't they the one who was cast aside?" They will remember how they talked about you in hushed tones, how they laughed behind your back, how they offered no hand when you were drowning. And yet here you are, not only standing, but shining. Not because you fought back, but because you held on. Because you trusted God when everything told you to give up. So don't be ashamed of your fall. Don't hide from the pain that others saw, because that is the very ground God is preparing to exalt you from. And when He lifts you, it will be with such undeniable grace that even those who doubted you will say, "Surely God was with them." Your public pain is the soil of your public restoration, and the one who saw it all will make sure no one misses the beauty that rises from it. To be innocent in a world that preys on purity is to walk a path of deep pain and deeper faith. When people take your innocence for granted, when they see your goodness as a weakness to exploit, and when they choose to hurt you simply because they could, it's easy to feel forgotten. But you are not. God saw it all. He saw the moments when you gave your heart with no agenda. He saw the betrayal that came when you least deserved it. He saw the cruelty, the gossip, the lies and the mocking tones. He saw the silence of those who should have defended you. He saw how you suffered with grace, and He did not turn away. He has been recording every tear, every prayer you whispered with a breaking voice, every time you almost gave up but chose to stand, every sleepless night, every unseen act of love, every brave smile through the storm. God saw, and because He saw, He will respond, not in haste, but in holiness, not with vengeance, but with justice. He will lift you. He will restore you. He will silence those who harmed you, not with your retaliation, but with your transformation. And the same stage where they once watched your humiliation will become the place where your healing is revealed. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them laugh. You are not alone. The God of all justice stands behind you, beside you, and ahead of you. And He will not let your innocence be wasted. He will not let your suffering be in vain. He will not let their cruelty have the final word, because the one who sees everything will make sure they see what He's about to do with you, and it will be glorious.